Greetings, viewers. I'm Chrissy Seaton and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to talk about Joseph and his coat of many colours. Now, in the past and continuing to the present, there's been songs, movies, legends, etc. Surrounding this absolutely amazing story and a truth that we need to understand as Gentiles and Noahides. Each week there is what they call a parsha. It's a reading and a learning of the Bible, chapter by chapter. It goes through routinely every year. You can gain a very good understanding from having an overview of it, or you can each year study it in a bit more depth, depending on whether you are Jewish or whether you are a Gentile, because some of it may not necessarily apply to Gentiles, Noahides, but some of it does. So today, I just want to draw our attention to this reading, this parsha, but it will sort of be very, very condensed. I'm only speaking about a small section of it, but there will be references, links in the description box below where you can go and access all this information plus more, because the story of Joseph and being in Egypt and of course in the household of Pharaoh is an amazing story. Every turn it takes, we can all as individuals learn something from that journey that Joseph had. So what I want to do today is just give you a very brief synopsis of what we're looking at today, and it's actually, you can actually access this. It's called in a nutshell, Joseph in a nutshell. So I will leave that link in the description box. So we pick up in the story here where the scene is set that Joseph is firmly entrenched in the household of Pharaoh. He is, he's right up there at the top. He's on a very one-to-one communication, etc., with Pharaoh. So he is a cherished possession or acquisition to Pharaoh's household. So we pick up here where Judah approaches Joseph to plead for the release of Benjamin. Now this is so Judah, the brother of Joseph, is pleading for the release of Benjamin, the other younger brother, offering himself as a slave to the Egyptian ruler in Benjamin's stead, meaning he will swap himself over. Now, upon witnessing this, his brothers' loyalty to one another, so this is Joseph saying, they don't know at this stage who Joseph is, okay? They just he's pleading with Joseph to replace his younger brother Benjamin with himself. This is Judah. And so this would obviously, just think about this would be a very touching thing, a very stirring situation for Joseph, because he recognises his brothers, but his brothers don't recognise him. I mean, let's face it, he's been away a long time, and he's now, as we would say, one of the top people. So Joseph, upon witnessing his brothers' loyalty to one another, he is very touched by that. It hits a chord in his heart. And so therefore, moving on, Joseph reveals his identity to them, to his brothers, and says, I am Joseph. And then he proceeds to say, is my father well? Now, we could debate those couple of quotes, couple of conversations forever and a day. Yeah, imagine when he says, I am Joseph, they'd be, and then, is my father well? You know, like it would be a great amount of emotion and information for those brothers then to absorb, wouldn't it? So, and it says, his brothers are overcome by shame and remorse, but Joseph comforts them. So the very brothers that put him in that awful predicament to begin with, he's now comforting them. It was not you, and then he proceeds, he says, it was not you who sent me here. He says to them, but God. So he's saying, it wasn't you. You know, you might have thought you sent me here, but this was God's way. This was in God's plan. So God has had it all ordained from above to save us, meaning there was a long-term plan moving towards this, and to save us and the entire region from the famine. So you've got to remember too, there was a lot going on in Egypt at this stage as well. So just that paragraph, imagine the shock. You know, there's so much information. Do you know we've all had an experience like that at times, haven't we? Where suddenly there's all sorts of information rushing in, and you haven't had time to absorb it before the next shock comes. So these brothers would have been, you know, wow, is this true? Am I dreaming? Is this really true? Sort of situation. So now it says that the brothers rush back to Canaan with the news. And Jacob comes to Egypt with his sons and their families, 70 souls in all, it says, and they are reunited with his beloved son, Joseph, after 22 years. So you now just stop and think, a parent who has been separated sadly or by unforeseen circumstances from their family for 22 years. They've gone missing, so to speak. You don't know where they are. Imagine the trauma that parents go through for however long. And then imagine if suddenly that son is revealed to them. He's alive, he's safe and well. Not only that, but he's a very important and influential man in Pharaoh's household. Imagine, it's hard to put yourself in those shoes, but I ask you just to reflect on that and think that trying to absorb all this would have been a mammoth task for all parties involved. So, on his way to Egypt, he receives the divine promise, "Fear not to go down to Egypt, for I will there make of you a great nation. I will go down with you into Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again." Then it goes on and says that Joseph gathers the wealth of Egypt by selling food and seed during the famine. Pharaoh gives Jacob's family, this is important, Pharaoh gives Jacob's family the fertile country of Goshen to settle in, and the children of Israel prosper in Egypt in their Egyptian exile. So that's just, as they call it, in a nutshell, a very brief overview. But just that little bit of information, I want you to put yourself in that situation. In today's world, what can we learn from this and apply to our lives or our surroundings, our community, perhaps in, we'll soon be in 2023. How do we deal with unpleasantness, this family discord, or we lose a member of our family. It can be by terrible means, or it can be that some families are disconnected, that they have disagreements, etc., and separate from each other for whatever reason. And I'm not going to go into those. There are many and varied reasons for that. But think of these people who have children who go missing. That's what I'm thinking when I look at this story, this Pasha. And also I'm thinking of the joy, like you've only got to momentarily misplace a child at times, you're in a group and suddenly you can't see, your child, the coat they're wearing or whatever, and then you're just about ready to collapse, and then suddenly, the child comes running around in the room again. There's nothing wrong. We've all experienced that. So apply that to our lives and our situation. First of all, look at how must those brothers have felt when they came face to face with Joseph. They didn't know who he was at first. Then he reveals himself. But no sooner that shock hits them in the face, so to speak, he extends this tremendous a well of compassion to them and understanding. So they were processing that, those brothers. Look at that from their point of view, and then look at the humility and the love and that Joseph showed them. So you could say both parties grew in a positive way, and you can see God's hand in that, can't you? And then to top it all off, they are given this piece of land or fertile area to settle in, and the children of Israel, it says here, prosper in their Egyptian exile. So God plans and man struggles at times with those plans. Along with those plans that God makes for us, we don't always understand what the final outcome will be. We don't always, we're not always made aware of the final plan, and that's God's prerogative. The thing we have to do is be obedient and righteous no matter where we're placed or what we are doing. We must be mindful of God, Hashem, our loving Father, our one true God who is with us 24/7. So everything that happens in our day, in the hours of each of our days, are orchestrated and planned through Hashem. So the takeaway message for you will be different than the takeaway message from me reading this part. Very condensed version of the weekly Parsha. But as I said, I will put links in the description box for you to follow through. There is much more reading you can do. But I think it's very important to absorb this story in a context of today's world, and how would we react? How would, if you were in Joseph's shoes, would you have been so gracious? And even if you saw your family and saw that they were upset, if there'd have been distress or, how shall I say, wrongdoing or bad experience within a family, would you have responded in the gracious way that Joseph did? Also, put yourself in the shoes of those brothers who had thought they'd disposed successfully of the brother they were jealous of because of that fancy coat that their father gave to Joseph. And it says that he was a favourite child. So you can see in families where they all say, oh, he's your favourite or she's your favourite, not me. That we've all experienced that. What in a small way, and certainly not as in such an aggressive way, one would hope, but what happened to Joseph and his journey to Egypt and the final outcome, you know, that could be applied to what we go through at times. And that's the beautiful thing about the weekly Parsha. There is always something in that that can apply to us as Gentiles. Not all of it is, how shall I say, meant to be applied wholly and fully and totally, but there is always something in the weekly Parsha that suits our level of understanding and experience in terms of our place in this world as a Noahide, as Gentiles. So I encourage you to follow the link and look at the readings and the explanations given. You'll get a much deeper insight than I can give you in this video. But I just think that there are so many things in this story, in this Parsha, that we can tease apart and apply to our own life and think about. So let us absorb that, and you know, what can we learn and apply just to inside of our family, or situations that we've been in or are in, and also in our greater community. There are lessons that we can use in our community as well. So it's important that we actually put a button on ourselves somewhere and say, look, I'm putting myself in neutral here. I'm not engaging any gears at all. I'm going to read this and understand it for what it is and keep a neutral focus and mind on it, step back and then say, how does this apply to me and mine? How does this apply to my household or my family or my community? How does this apply to my school or my workplace? So there is always something in the weekly Parsha that everyone can learn from and take away from it something that improves their lifestyle and the lives of others and their community. So I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope I have opened up some thoughts and made you inquisitive. I thank you all so very much for your wonderful comments, emails. I get a lot of emails, and I always try to, at some point in time, do videos on questions that people have asked me, and the weekly Parshas was something. A couple of times this week there's been, I've had emails about it. So some of you may not be aware of those weekly Parshas. If you're not a Noahide, or certainly the Jews are well aware of it, but if you're not a Noahide, you may not be aware of the depth and richness of those weekly Parshas. And we can access those through those links I will place in the description box below. Thank you all once again, subscribers. I've got just over 800 subscribers now, and I thank you all. You're very precious to me. And those of you who haven't subscribed yet, I suggest you click the subscribe button. And there's 2 to 3 videos every week that I put out. Please take care and have a wonderful 2023, and be righteous Gentiles. Bye.